So good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. We are super excited to have with us today Eniris Riddick. She's the Executive Director of FaithAction International House. And so before we start and hear from her, I just wanted to announce a couple of things. First, no Friday Facts next week because we have our Serious Illness Coalition monthly meeting that day. And I am sure that many of you will appreciate the news that we've reduced the meeting time from 3 hours down to 2. So that meeting will now occur from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Versus 10 to 1. So that updated invitation will be coming your way later today. Other than that, please make sure to write your name and organization information in the comment box and post any questions that you have along the way. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into our interview. Eniris, thank you so much for being here today. I know our group is excited to learn more about you and the work that FaithAction is doing. And I thought before we jump into learning about you and your background, maybe you could share with us just some information on FaithAction and its mission and what you're currently what you're working on right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Virginia. And good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure for me to be here this morning and sharing this space with all of you. Like Virginia shared, my name is Eniris Riddick or Eniris Riddick Delgado. I am the Executive Director with FaithAction International House. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And FaithAction International House has been in the community for 25 years. Actually, our birthday was last year, and that's when we reached the 25-year mark of proudly serve the Greensboro community. And FaithAction, our mission is to advocate and educate and walk alongside the immigrant and refugee community. And this calling came to us 25 years ago through our founder because of the increased diversity in the United States and also in the Greensboro area, because he was concerned about how we were serving and how we were being welcoming to our newest neighbors. He created what it was back then, Faith in Action. Right now, throughout the years, that name developed into FaithAction International House, because not only when you hear the word immigrant, we tend to think about the Latinx Hispanic community. However, we serve over 50 countries worldwide. That's why the international name comes from, because we serve anybody from any part of the world.
Thank you. And thank you for that background. We appreciate that. And wow, first off, happy 25 years. That's incredible. And serving over 50 countries, that's amazing. So kudos to you and your organization and all the great work that you're doing. All right, well then let's go ahead and jump in and learn more about you. Maybe you could start just by sharing your background, where you grew up and your early life.
Oh, it would be my pleasure for you guys to get to know me. I am from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in my island. I came to United States 21 when I was 21, 22. Growing up in Puerto Rico is very interesting because, as you know, we are a Commonwealth of the United States. However, we in the island, we act as it is our own country, because it is our country, our own language and our culture. It's sort of like if we were the stepchild of United States kind of relationship. However, we are a very social justice focused country, because we have, through our history and colonization, we have to advocate for ourselves. So I grew up seeing Puerto Ricans lifting their voices when there were unjust situations from the government or anything that was affecting the community, because it doesn't affect but one person, but all of us. And seeing how my community came together on many different issues through the racial equity lens and the social justice lens, that was pretty much my inspiration and the way I live my life. Like, I was 3 years old and my mother would tell me that I would argue with her of why she wouldn't buy me a toy. And I think now looking back, I'm like, Mom, of course I did. I'm Puerto Rican. That's what we do. We advocate for ourselves. I was just advocating for me. Also, part of the work, so that inspired me to be very social justice oriented in my personal life and also as a leader. But also my mother, growing up, my mother was a victim of domestic violence and nobody advocated for her. And I felt helpless because as a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, I saw my mother get beaten up by my father and I couldn't do anything. So that also inspired me to immediately to be an advocate for anybody, especially women, but anybody who suffer an injustice. And this is where I am today. And I have been in the nonprofit field for over 13, 14 years, where I always, my professional goals were aligned with my core values, and that was to move social equity, racial equity, and social justice forward.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. So we can certainly see how growing up in Puerto Rico and the experiences that you had shaped you to and brought you to where you are today, certainly working with Faith Action. Can you share any of the other organizations that you've worked with in the nonprofit field
I
prior to
would love
coming to
to.
Faith Action?
Yes. So I relocated. I was in Tampa, Florida for about 12 years, and I relocated to North Carolina. And the very first opportunity was working for Family Service, the Head Start program, where I was a case manager for the migrant seasonal families. And I was a family advocate at the cultural liaison. And I truly enjoyed that work because, again, it happened for me organically and advocating for each family. I take it as my personal mission. We each want to represent each family. After serving and working with them for almost 4 years, I had the opportunity to have a leadership role with Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Charlotte, but I was based in Winston. And I was the regional emergency like a coordinator or case manager. And we serve over 13 counties, especially I can't say this word, but the rural areas in the mountains,
Mhm.
the mountains. And then after that, I took a different turn. I worked for Hospice and palliative care, which is now known Trellis Supportive Care. And I was with Trellis Supportive Care for almost 2 years as the director of volunteer services. And that job truly changed my life and my perspective, because it gave me the opportunity to bring awareness to the Hispanic community in regards to hospice care. And I'm sorry. And after that, then I joined Faith Action as the director of operations, and I was given the charge to continue moving our mission forward when our former executive director retired, and now I'm the executive director.
Okay, thank you. And, mentioning Trellis, I don't see Linda Darden on right now, but I know that you have worked with her and you know her, and we'll have to let her know about this interview and she can go back and watch it. And I know that it'd be great for the two of you to see each other again. So working in hospice, let's just go back to that for a minute. Can you talk a little bit more just about what that experience was like and any lessons that you learned from that?
Yeah, but it was an eye-opener for me because culturally, we don't have hospice in our countries. And I'm talking about the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. We take care of our elderly as home as much as we can. We even see hospice and palliative care as a way of abandon your family. And when I work with Faith Action, like if you ask me, would you put your grandmother in hospice, which we did, I was in total denial. I was like, no, how can I do that to my grandmother? Because I love her. I felt like I was abandoning her. When I started working for hospice, it was an eye-opener because not only they give you the support that you need to make you comfortable until your last day, but they also look at their approach is holistic. They have a chaplain to take care of your spiritual needs. They have the case manager, the social worker, who helps the family and navigate all those conversations with the medical providers. But also, it's a safe place, it's a home. And the first lesson for me was to teach and educate the Latinx community about it's a taboo. That's not the way it is. And another lesson that I learned is usually when I used to table at events, what I share with others, oh, I work for hospice, they will immediately be like, oh, I'm sorry. And they will walk away because it for them, hospice care meant death. And also that was another lesson that I learned. It's not death at all, because we even have families on the home healthcare side that they're very much alive and they just need support and care at home. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and I really wish and I continue to invite the community to please to consider hospice and palliative care.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I agree with you. I think that, you know, a lot of people have an incorrect view of what hospice really is and all that it has to offer. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19, which unfortunately is still around, better, but still here. As the executive director of Faith Action, how do you feel the pandemic impacted communities of people with immigrant and refugee experiences?
So yes, COVID has been an awful thing for us as humanity, and as an agency, it was really, it affected us, of course, like, and the whole world, the whole community and organizations. We had to actually, the pandemic was, the positive side of the pandemic is that it forced us to sit down and say, okay, we need to be innovative and we had to be creative, because we couldn't stop serving our families during the pandemic. And one of the biggest obstacle or side effects, if I may say, of the pandemic is that our families were unable to come to us because we had to follow the CDC guidelines and recommendations. However, our families come to us to find diapers, food. When they're hungry, they know they can come to us and receive emergency food. So even though we had that restriction, we turned most of our services as a drive-through style, like McDonald's. We also relied a lot using FaceTime, WhatsApp, and Zoom to meet with the families. So we didn't stop serving the community. We just had to become very creative and find ways to continue serving them. And the pandemic couldn't stop us. We were working from home, but then we will also have a hybrid system where we come to the office so we can provide the families food and any other services that they needed.
No, that's fantastic. And I like what you just said. Excuse me, the pandemic couldn't stop us. And that is fantastic. And you're right, you couldn't stop because those families depended on you and still depend on you. So that's great to hear that you were able to find those creative ways that many of us have had to do to serve the community and others. So that is great. Are there any key challenges you feel for people with immigrant and refugee experience regarding serious illness care that we should be thinking about?
Yes, I think having when I was working with Trellis, one of the things what the most, like always, is the language barrier. I feel like if Trellis Supportive Care, when they went through their rebranding, when they changed the names, they were very intentional, and I was part of that process of having everything also translated into Spanish, because our families are not going to come if they don't know that they have a Spanish representative available to support them. And although it was only like 3 of us that spoke Spanish in the organization, we were there trying to come up with solutions. So when the clients called, they didn't have to say, okay, somebody's going to call you back, or I don't speak Spanish, let me find an interpreter, because immediately the family is going to lose interest. And the best way for relationship building and building trust is to have somebody that speaks your language, right? And it looks like you. So that's one of the most important things that I learned, and that I would advise to any provider to please remember to have materials translated, Spanish speaker staff. I know it's difficult to find Spanish speaker staff, I know, but there's other ways that you can meet that need also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because that is important. And you do want to be able to help right then and there and not say, oh, you have to wait and we'll find someone to follow up with you. So that's great that Trellis did that. I'm sure many of the other organizations are doing that. And if not, they're listening right now. And what a great recommendation. So thank you. Still talking about serious illness care. What are some ways that our coalition and our team can better approach conversation about serious illness care that will expand inclusiveness, specifically to the Latina community and their families?
That's a very good question, Virginia, because like I share with you, the for me it was a taboo, right? Hospice care, but also was dementia. In our countries, they don't teach us about dementia and Alzheimer's. And I think the biggest what made us very successful to understand this process when my grandmother was under hospice care for dementia was the education component. Having education workshops and webinar that were completely in Spanish, not through an interpreter, and taking a proactive approach because our families were not going to come to hospice to ask for information. Typically, a doctor at the hospital, when they diagnose that terminal illness, will make the recommendation, right? Maybe you should reach out to hospice care, or you can take your family home. And typically, we won't do that because that's a moment where we feel like we are at a crossroad. We don't want to abandon our families. And if there are trainings that can be provided with the cultural sensitivity, that I know that will change a lot of families' lives in the community. My apologies. I have a tiny cold that I'm trying to get rid of.
No, thank you. And I feel like that's going around, and allergies and all that good stuff. So you're not alone with that. All right. So how about, you know what? I've seen a couple questions in the chat. Let me jump over to that if that's okay with you. Heather Altman is asking, with such a shortage on direct care workers, what are your experiences with connecting participants with job career opportunities? Or is that something that's a new opportunity that can be explored?
So the question is like, how do we recruit staff though with the shortage?
Yeah, is that what you're asking, Heather? It looks like, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was looking in the direct care world, since we have such a shortage, if there are your participants, so some of the newer immigrants, some of the new members of the community. We've talked in previous discussions about how there can be a stronger linkage between helping them find jobs in needed the healthcare space or caregiving space. So I was curious if there's been a link that you've seen with new people coming in and being able to fill those jobs that have been really hard to fill.
Absolutely. So the Latinx community, the Latinx Hispanic community, we're a very tight community. So we'll typically, for example, when there's a position open, we're going to start spreading all throughout North Carolina. Hey, there's a position open. However, one approach that has been taken in other roles with other organizations is creating relationships with universities in those countries. For example, Puerto Rico, we're a Latin country, but we have citizenship. And I know it's very difficult to fill bilingual positions or positions that require to speak Spanish because most of our immigrants here have a limited status. But I know that there are universities that are working directly with organizations like yours to make sure that when we have graduates, that they know they're about graduating, they have a job offer and they can come here. One example that I have that was very successful of that model was through the Head Start program. The Head Start program was facing the same challenge. They wanted to increase the diversity. So they contacted different universities in Puerto Rico, especially my alma mater, University of Puerto Rico. They contacted the School of Education. And and they started a campaign and those relationships with the students. And as soon as they had students graduating, that they foster that relationship and knew that they wanted to come to the United States, they came with a job already and they had that employment, and you as an employer had that position secure. And I hope that answered your question, Miss Heather, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. It was a great question and great response. Thank you. I see one other question from Sue Deaton. She's asking, what are some creative solutions that you've seen to educate diverse audiences?
So before the pandemic, of course, it was a little bit easier because we were tabling, we were intentional about tabling an event specifically to reach out a specific community, because it doesn't only have to be the Latinx community. It could be the Afghan community. As you know, we have an influx of Afghan arrivals to the country now, and we might start seeing that soon because, with the issue with Ukraine. So we used to go to tabling at events. For example, every school system and every school has a parents' night, where it's a night where they have like a fair. Different organizations come to them to share information. So tabling at events, lunch and learns is a very strong strategy. Facebook Lives, where the families can join and ask questions. And now, because of COVID, everybody has been forced to be very Zoom oriented, and they use a visual platform, right? So right now, our education campaigns are heavily rely on Facebook Live, Lunch and Learns through Facebook, also having forum discussions where we invite the community, and town halls through the library. We try to go because most of us know what the library is. So we partner with the library also to invite the community. And I hope that was helpful. Did I answer your question?
Definitely. Great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Okay. Can you just share, as we're wrapping up, anything else about the current work that Faith Action is doing, and if there's any opportunities that our members can collaborate or support the work that you're doing?
That's a very good question, and it's very kind, because we are always looking for community allies that can continue helping us better serve the Latinx community, but also the international community. And I think one of the ways, I wanted to share the Faith Action, after 25 years, have relocated to a new building and a new location. We're going to have an open house on June 9 from 5 to 7, and I would like to invite all of you to come and share that experience with us. I think sharing with me information, if you have it available in Spanish, so I can share that with my families, so I can start sharing with them that they have these services available and they can come to you guys. We also have a Spanish speaker congregational nurse on board that can also be a link to answer those questions about hospice care and the support that they could receive. But I think it will be mainly giving me the opportunity to share that information in Spanish. And if you don't, it will be my pleasure to volunteer my time and help with that. But yeah, those are very good ways that if you send me information or we can participate or table at your events, we can do that as well.
Great. Thank you. And thank you also for volunteering if we do need that assistance to translate things into Spanish. Jumping back over to your open house, I want to make sure the members have all the information on that. You said June the 9th. Was that from 5 to 7 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe we could get from you, and I could follow up with members later, just the address and any other contact information we can share. And obviously we'll share your website and all of that.
Would it be okay if I put the address in the chat?
Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. Yep, put it in the chat. And yes. And I think you had also mentioned, you're doing an overall rebranding also of Faith Action as well. So that'll be exciting to see once that's complete.
Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. I'm so excited. So yes, so Faith Action, because we have been in the community for 25 years and there have been shifts in the immigrant trends, we are going through a rebranding. And Shane Lucas is helping us with that. We are, and the reason why we're doing this is to strengthen our image in the community, to the coming back stronger, to give a review of our services and core values. But I'm very excited, and please follow us on Facebook or on Instagram if you're able to, so you can be part of that process. We're very excited.
Well, that is very exciting. We will absolutely be sure to follow your progress. And
I'm putting the website on the chat.
oh, great, thank you. There it is. Fantastic. Karen Appert has raised her hand.
This was a great interview, and Virginia, you did a great job. You asked a lot of the questions that I had, so thank you. And Eniris, it's great to meet you. My question is it okay if we reach out to you via email? Just, you said some things that really got my mind going in lots of different directions, especially as you talked about hospice and palliative care and having people think differently about what that means. And I'm really intrigued to learn more about that, especially as you mentioned, as it relates to culturally and getting people to think differently about it. It's difficult to do, and I'd just be interested to learn more about how successful you feel like you were in doing that kind of educational process.
Oh, it will be my pleasure. Please do. I just included my email, my personal email address in the chat, my work email, and my cell phone number. I am very passionate about this, and I thank you for being interested in helping me provide more resources to my community. Yes, that made my heart.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Yes, please.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Karen. Great comments there. Well, with that said, unless there's any other questions from the group, Eniris, we just want to thank you so much for your time this morning and for just sharing so much of the great work that Faith Action is doing. And we'll be certainly excited to follow you on your progress. And again, remind everyone of your open house. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. It has been a pleasure for me to be in this, to share this space with all of you. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, Karen. And please feel free to reach out by phone. You can text me, you can email me. I would love to be your ally and to help with anything I can. And I hope everybody have a great weekend.
Fantastic. I hope you all have a great weekend as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Take care.